Hey girls. Okay, let's talk about Gabby Bernstein's Super Attractor. I'm going to cover the most important points from the introductory chapter. And I want to preface this by saying I know that there are so many people in different situations right now. This is not about some airy fairy pie in the sky. You just have to close your eyes to what's really going on in your world or in the world beyond you. But rather, what it's about is to start to train your thought forms such that you perceive the world in a different way. Therefore, new actions become available to you. Because if you just look at the world through the same eyes, at the same level of consciousness and thought as you've been looking at the world, well, then your results are going to stay the same. But when you begin to train your mind, train your thoughts to think about things differently, that's when you become able to take the actions to create a new life. Okay, so let's dig in. Essentially, the most important thing about this book is about manifesting your best life, but not simply from a place of only spiritual principles. What it's really about is connecting to a higher power beyond yourself. Call that the universe, call that God. It's not as important what you call that. What's most important is that you access it. I call it spirit, source, the universe, God, higher power, my higher consciousness. There are so many different ways to conceptualize this, but beginning to develop a relationship with this is what is going to transform your life. Now, there's a few things that she says she experienced a major transformation in when she began to develop a relationship with her higher power and began to do some of the practices in this book. Specifically, what's possible is a sense of freedom. Now, I want that. None of us are free in our society. We're told so many different things about our self-worth, about who we are, about what this means about us, and about what that means about us, how much possessions we have, how much money we make, how successful we are, how we look. All of these things that the world tell us mean something about us, it shackles us. And what she actually says is that you can experience a feeling of freedom by being so connected to this higher power, knowing yourself as a soul having a human experience, as a spirit having a human experience, rather than the other way around. And so, in doing so, you'll experience such a strong sensation of freedom and such a release of fear. You won't be blocked by fear because you are living life on a different level. You're no longer in the illusion of the mortal reality. You are experiencing the understanding of yourself as a soul, having a human experience, and being in relation to God. Now, here's the thing though. A lot of people recognize this, but they think that's the end. And actually, it's the beginning. It's really the starting point. It's not enough to have this realization. It's not enough to have this awakening of yourself as a spiritual being. What we want to do is begin to embody this daily, moment by moment. Begin to track and see, when do I fall off this way of thinking? When do I get caught up in the mortal illusion? When do I get caught up in fear, anger, separation, judgment, self-doubt? And begin to get back on track, begin to align with the frequency of God, the frequency of our higher power as much as possible. And this allows us to create real change in our lives. The next thing she talks about is if we want to access that relationship with God, if we want to access that relationship with our higher power, we have to see, where do we get blocked from that frequency? It's about our thoughts and it's about our emotions. That's what creates our frequency. So what are some common blocks? Well, the first one is obvious. We forget. We so commonly forget that we are that spiritual being having a human experience. If we remembered, we would walk around in gratitude all of the time. The next is that we may be what she calls either a manic manifester or a pusher. Now, a pusher is more obvious. If you push and push and push, if you feel like you have to control everything, if you want your life to be a certain way, if you have to hit all your goals, otherwise you feel worthless, well, then that's being a pusher. And clearly, what you're trying to do in that instance is play God in some way. That disconnects you from source because you think that you have to hustle for worthiness. The other aspect, though, that's kind of similar to that is being a manic manifester. So essentially, a manic manifester is when you have a lot of these tools, these spiritual principles, but you're doing so, you're practicing them in a very egoic way. And so you might say, okay, I know what to do. I've been trying to visualize, trying to think of myself on my highest plane, trying to connect with my higher self. I've been trying to do all of the gratitude lists, and I've been trying to, again, all of these practices that are so helpful, but only if your come from is that I am a divine being, I am connected to God, I am in relationship with Source, and so therefore I do these practices, but it's not to get something, it's not to make up for some perceived lack or separation. The next is fear, judgment, anger. Any of those will block our super attractor power and our ability to be connected to source. So those blocks are really important to think about. We're going to address more and more of them as we move forward. And finally, what she says in this chapter is what she wants for us is to be able to live a spiritual life. It's not about having things be compartmentalized, where we go to yoga, we have a certain spiritual experience, we meditate, we have a certain spiritual experience, we read a book, we have a certain spiritual experience, but then the rest of our day is fragmented by fear and doubt and illusion. No, it's actually about bringing this wisdom into our everyday lives such that we can train our brain to be in this frequency instead of the frequency of doubt, lack, fear, and all of that. With that said, I actually want to share something. Today I released the first podcast of the new season of the Soul Guided Book Club podcast. I was so excited. And there was a lot to really celebrate about it. There were new people that heard it, that joined the Soul Guided Book Club after coming to this podcast. It was a fantastic interview. And so there was a lot to really celebrate about it, but something went wrong. I'm not going to go into it because I don't want to throw anyone under the bus. But there was something that went wrong. And let me tell you what, the way that my mind, on this day that my spiritual podcast was released, and I am looking forward to the new season of this podcast and the relaunch of the Soul Guided Book Club. Where did my mind go? My mind went to that person should have known better. I can't believe they did this. And I just had to laugh because that's where my mind went. But then after that, my mind immediately went to, oh my goodness, well, here you are with this spiritual book club, and yet you are judging somebody else. And that's not very spiritual of you, and you should be more forgiving and compassionate. In fact, you should just be grateful all the time. You ever hear that? So I noticed both. I noticed my judgment towards this person. I noticed my judgment towards myself. And that's the power of these tools, is because of that, I was able to say, oh, I see that. I see my judgment. Thank you. We don't attack our negative thoughts. We're going to talk about this in chapter 1. We don't attack our negative thoughts. Rather, we see them, we forgive them, we even practice gratitude, and we say, thank you. Thank you for showing me what I don't want. I don't want to judge this person. I want to experience the gratitude and joy, knowing that I'm moving forward with my dreams. I don't want to judge myself for having this little moment, this little wobble. Instead, what I want to do is I want to celebrate that I had this awareness, that I didn't get lost in a spiral, that I was able to come out of it and say, okay, I did give myself a chance to vent. I'm not going to lie. I called someone and said, I just got to get this out of my system. But once I did, I was like, everything's going to be fine. It's going to be great. And I chose to realign back with the love of my higher power, the universe, love towards this person, love towards myself, love towards the people that are going to experience the Soul Guided Book Club podcast with me and the Soul Guided Book Club. So it was just a wonderful reminder of the universe. Hey, we are always on this path, no matter what. No matter how many times you listen to this chapter, no matter how many times you listen to this book, there's always going to be that opportunity to wobble, but that opportunity to get right back on track. So with that said, here I am in such a great mood, making this video back on track, aligned with the love of the universe, the gratitude that I feel for you, and this wisdom that we're receiving through Gabby Bernstein. So thank you for joining me for this video, and I'll see you on the next one.